214 candidates. Yes, that's correct. There will be no less than 214 candidates in Pierre Poilievre's by-election. I'm Steve Sandford. You're watching Dominion Report. Now, 214 is well over double the previous record of 91, which has happened twice before in Canada, including in the Carleton Ottawa riding that Poilievre lost earlier this year. That paper ballot was nearly a metre long. The excess number of candidates in these ridings comes from the efforts of the Longest Ballot Committee. This is an activist organization that grew out of the Rhinoceros Party. The intent of Longest Ballot is to protest the first-past-the-post voting system, which does present some numerous problems. And it was something that back in 2015, when Justin Trudeau was first running for Prime Minister, that the Liberals promised to address. They famously didn't. For me personally, I applaud the goal of bringing attention to the issue, although I'm not entirely sure that this is the best way to go about it. I'll get to why I feel that way in a moment. First past the post, the system that we have, is where the candidate with the most votes wins the riding. It's pretty simple. The problem is, unless there are only two candidates, it's quite possible that a candidate can win with a less than majority vote. Just imagine four candidates in a hypothetical riding where three of them get 24% of the vote and the fourth one gets 28%. Should the candidate that is supported by only 28% of the voters be representing all of those voters? First past the post also encourages strategic voting, where voters are often discouraged from selecting the candidate that they like the most because they need to vote for the candidate who will keep the one that they dislike the most from winning. There are several options to first past the post. Actually, there's two primary ones. One is proportional representation. This is where seats in Parliament are not associated to a geographic region or a riding, and the party will simply earn seats based on the total number of votes that they get across the whole election. Another option is ranked choice. So this is where voters rank the candidates first choice, second choice, third choice, etc. After counting the first choices only, if no candidate has a majority, then the last place candidate is eliminated, and the ballots for that candidate are then redistributed to other candidates based on the second place choices of those voters. This repeats until one candidate has a majority. There are a few other ways to run elections. There's the two-round system, mixed member proportional, and single transferable vote. These are less common around the world, but they do offer viable alternatives. Now, it's interesting to note, among the world's democratic countries, proportional representation is actually the most common, and our system, first past the post, is actually the least common. So yes, the Longest Ballot Committee is right to bring light to this issue, and it certainly is something that Canadians should be talking about. However, running 200 plus candidates in a riding may have some unintended consequences. As a result of this situation, several proposals have been discussed. These proposals essentially aim to make it more difficult to be a candidate. There are three primary proposals right now. One is to increase the nomination signature threshold from 100 signatures to 0.5% of the riding's population. That could be up to 600 signatures in some of the larger ridings. Another option being proposed is to require exclusive signatures. So among those 100 signatures, or 0.5% of the riding's population, basically banning citizens from signing for multiple candidates. A third one is limiting the official agents. And so an official agent needs to be associated with a candidate, and the limit would be so that no person can be an official agent for more than one candidate. I have some thoughts on these proposals. Increasing the signature requirements to as many as 6 times as it is now doesn't seem right to me. Generally speaking, I don't believe it's a good idea to make it more difficult to participate in democracy. Banning individuals from being a signatory to more than one candidate seems like maybe a good idea until the issue of enforcement comes up. How are you going to police it? Who is going to cross-reference the list of every candidate with every other candidate to ensure compliance? Making it so somebody can be an official agent for only one candidate is perhaps the most pragmatic of the proposed ideas, but also will have the least impact to limit longest ballot type activities. The other problem I have with the proposals in response to the longest ballot is that it appears to be mostly politicians who are making these proposals, including Poilievre himself. I don't think politicians should be involved in deciding how elections are run in any way whatsoever. If someone like Poilievre is allowed to demand that an election, where he is a candidate, can be governed a certain way, that sets a pretty terrible precedent. Just saying. All of that said, at this point, these are just proposals, and if none of them are actually enacted, then I guess no harm is done by the longest ballot committee. And their goal, of course, is to get Canadians talking about electoral reform. So, congratulations, here we are. Regarding electoral reform, let's just agree also that politicians who have already been elected under a certain system aren't really likely to want that system to be changed. Any major reform that does take place should be determined by an independent body appointed with multi-partisan approval. And there perhaps should be a public referendum. I've already spoken on this channel about Poilievre's strategic decision to run in this particular riding, and I'll put a link to that video below. And we're going to follow the by-election, which takes place on August 18th, although early voting has already begun. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future updates.